source XBRL facility, and it started back about, well, actually it started back when we had the Rome and the Volcano Conference, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago, and XSP did a survey from XBRL, the XBRL community, on the kinds of things they wanted, and this was when we heard things like an abstract model with better documentation and public API, but one of the things that the respondents asked for was more open source products, and that idea stuck in my mind, stuck with me until there was a time to be able to work on this. And so these are the motherhood words on why this project started, but basically it was to provide something that encouraged people to have an open source XBRL product that they could integrate with their projects and extend and so forth. So what does it do in a small quick description? It allows one to load, view, and validate things that are XBRL, and those things can be instances, taxonomies, version reports, RSS feeds, test cases, formulas, all of the things that you're used to with XBRL. The REL project was meant to treat them uniformly as XBRL type objects, and there's no distinguishment of whether you're opening an instance document or a test case or a version report. It's supposed to discover and know what to do with it, and it's supposed to be able to do with it in several different styles. If one were to use it from a laptop or a Mac or something like that, be able to see something in terms of a graphical user interface, but if one were to try to integrate, the early integration by most people was using a command line approach. That's kind of primitive. Now web services seems to be the easier way to integrate this with other products, and an API that gives full access to all features. So like all of the other things you've seen here, it can open up DTSs and previews and let you poke around in it. The implementation is a bit different. Everything in my universe before has been languages like Java and C# and the things before it. I was strongly encouraged to look at Python, first because the SEC had this very controversial call for comments about 4 years ago of your asset-based security models should be reported in Python, and I, among other people, was asked to write white papers on why this is stupid, it should be in XBRL. And in trying to invent the reasons why that was stupid, I had all of these people telling me, no, you should look at Python, it has some really serious advantages. Well, it does. It's accepted by the financial modeling community. Most of the math whizzes who build these elaborate models on, I'm being cynical, how to defraud investors and not let them know. These models are mostly done in Python because it's extremely productive, because there's no free licensed content for anything in Python. And I discovered that this is all true for building a tool for XBRL. So it's all fresh new code. There's no reuse of anything. There's all the different ways of interacting with it from the standpoint of GUI, command line, web services, and whatever comes in the future. And it's completely open source. We looked at a number of different license models, and the people I interacted with said very quickly, no GPL, stay away from it. It's based on the Apache license, so as you find people using a REL, we don't know about it. It's none of our business. The one really important thing about the Apache licensing is that it keeps the patent lawyers away. It flows down the responsibility for if a patent infringement you'll never know until later because the patent is secret until it's issued. So to be told there's a patent infringement, you can only learn after the patent's awarded. It's only good for lawyers. But with the Apache agreement, if there is a patent issue, it flows down and the person complaining has to remove the patent problem and provide a substitution. And the flow up is whatever somebody does in using it, they can't stop other people from using or selling or embedding that same feature. So that's why people like it. It is trademarked in the EU and the US. It does all of these I went backwards to where I was. All of the standard things about loading and validating, and for validating, built in are the things that at least I most often encounter, the standard 2.1 stuff, everything to do with formula, versioning reports, units registry, Edgar filer manual, global filer manual I list, although we really don't have a conformance suite for it yet, so I'm not sure it makes sense. Also the UK GAP, several others. So all of the things that you might need to go into business filing for Edgar, those checks have been stably run by people who are using this either in parallel to a production or in production for quite a while now. One of the things that has always bothered me about XBRL tools is we built these really elaborate test suites in XBRL International, and they're these really geeky things that nobody uses. And when I've worked on XBRL processors commercially, there have been some really brilliant people doing the processors, and then over in the other cave, there's some people doing testing with some very ungeeky, unsophisticated testing tools. So the idea here was to build test in so totally integrated, so that anybody who has a tool can visually or in a command file or in batch mode or with the Python unit test structure be running these tests to know where they stand at any given moment, particularly because it's meant to extend and so forth. In fact, this last line, plugins are a very recent feature, and people trying to extend the tool can add code that is outside of the build, but in source code, that extends things like validations, extends any of the user interface features, does these new things like we just did a convert the Eurofiling 2010 syntax to the XII table link-based 2011 syntax. These are really easy things to add in later. So the test suite can be looked at just in the same way as a normal preview. Versioning reports can be loaded. I don't have a screenshot of it, but if you load a versioning report like the one from IFRS, you'll get the list of events on the top, and as you push them, you can see the left and right taxonomy and which linkbase do I want to look at, or the concept list, or whatever to see them. It's not generating them, it's consuming them and viewing them, although it will take two taxonomies and attempt to do a diff of them to produce what the machine-readable comparison of two taxonomies can add to a version report. But the version report was meant to show business information, so that's far less than what the human can add when a human uses a more sophisticated tool to prepare a version report. Formula link base has been around for, that was the first thing that people asked for. I think it was back here at the Bank of Spain about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. This part of the tool has been out for over a year now. It's beginning to start to find its way into production use, so people are just beginning to push on optimizing the features, and here's something that's slow, let's add some optimization to that. But it does have everything in the formula suite is implemented, everything in the proposed extensions like the multi-instance and all of those things can be played with, and optimization as people come up with things that need optimization. And because formula link base is a declarative environment where one specifies filters, it is exactly that kind of thing where if there's something that ends up getting stuck in a loop and done 30,000 times when you only need it once, these are things that need to be found through test cases, and this is an area where I would expect in the next year you'll start to find quite substantial evolvement. For example, recently there were a set of correct and FinRep test cases. Most of those have been optimized. The formula view can be interactive, although if you're integrating it's probably done at an API level. Table link base, you've probably seen this in other demos during the week. We've got basically a full support for the X and the Y and the Z axes, listing of the rendering link base. Again, the 2010 is fully supported. The 2011 we're starting to do. Also support if you're doing, we've got a second window here. If you're doing something that's in GL, you can also get some rendering of things that might make sense for a GL user. We built a cute little piece of what I would call eye candy. At this moment, I don't find it very useful. But there is this RSS feed coming from the SEC, and it was thought that it would be nice to have something that could take the feed as it comes out and do searches. Like you could search for a keyword under audit, or directors in jail, or whatever you want to look for, or run formulas against it. And there is the capability for this. I haven't found anybody who practically needs it for anything, so I demote that to calling it eye candy. But it gives one an idea of how things can be written for that. It's done in a model view controller architecture. I know this sounds like old stuff, but I do have a different set of, this is the wrong one, a different set of presentations where this was done for an academic conference, where one can go through the organization of the tool and the different API that uses it if there were of interest. And there are examples to do some of the simple stuff in the API, like validation or tree walks or run formulas. But basically, this is something that has to evolve as people need it. The idea of using an API in Python, I've discovered, is not completely useful. Most people want to integrate the tool more macroscopically, and at the moment it seems like the port 80 or web service or something of that architecture seems to be much more useful than a fine-grained coupling at the very low level of the API. And just finally, I mentioned optimization. It's one of the nice things of being in something like Python. There's extremely good support for localization. All of the, I can't remember the jargon, I18N, all of the features for having strings go out for these utilities that you can find all over Google and Wikipedia to help localize strings. These are all fully supported with the help of the Spanish, with the help of people who aren't here from France. We have Spain and France localizations. Other countries haven't stepped forward yet. We do also...
Bidirectional Hebrew, Arabic.
I've attempted to put that in. There are a couple of things that are disappointing. One of them was in going to Abu Dhabi, we made an extremely serious attempt to get Arabic localization and totally failed to find anyone to do it for us. We're using a completely no strings attached set of GUI for Python that doesn't officially support bidirectional, so we're faking the string order. There is a Python GUI that has a license fee that has good bidirectional support, but I think it's going to become public. I'm kind of disappointed because I thought there would be a great deal of interest for it, but it hasn't come yet, so maybe that comes later. One slight interesting thing, when I did some work in Japan, maybe about 5 years ago now, number format localization is an interesting issue. The out-of-the-box behavior of the tool is whatever your localization setting is. If I'm in Belgium, instead of commas between thousands, I want to see a space between thousands. You can also have this thing behave where the localization depends upon the number in its unit. And I've failed to find anybody who finds that useful yet, but there's lots of options. The main thing that makes open source interesting is the community of users and the feedback and the contributions. And the way to see that with a product like a REL, I'll get to that in a moment, is by looking at the website where people do feedback. We're using the formal project management system by a company called Atlassian, and I will show you some screenshots of that. But one of the things that was kind of a guiding interest here, I think that the open source stuff that's hit the academic community has always worked very well. Unix kind of got going back in the IBM run world of PL1 and OS 360. Unix got going because somehow they grabbed the attention of academia. Linux got going because they grabbed the attention of academia. In the XBRL world, we have some very small pieces of academia. Most of them are from the audit community that I'm aware of, but some of the things that I think make it suitable for academia for the first time is that at least with the Python focus, this thing is really small. It's small enough for any one of a billion bright master's students to be able to deal with it. And I think they have the opportunity to internalize it and figure out what to do with it and leverage from it. And it's model-based so that there's a unified model. I mean, maybe being model-based means that as it gets restructured and the model gets improved, there are, if you look at the Atlassian site, you see that there's people who are coming up with different ideas on how to refactor things for a much better model, and I expect to get that also from the abstract modeling task force, but these are things to look forward to. At one time we had a roadmap. I no longer know what the roadmap looks like, but we're somewhere around this thing where we've built the stuff that people have asked for so far. Below this where we are, this is stuff that I'm pushing that no one's asking for yet, but every XBRL conference, Maciek and I go up on the pulpit and we preach that XBRL has to go from the producer side to the consumer side, and to go onto a consumer side technology, we have to escape from the constraints of XML and go into the opportunity of extremely large BI, database support, OLAP, and all the rest. The AMTF, which I'm contributing to, is now based upon the OMG CWM. It is based upon OLAP. And I'm very interested in trying to find the time to have the opportunity to begin to explore taking this open source stuff and opening it up to OLAP and kind of being able to take the first baby step away from XML. But I think that's where we need to go for the future. And it might be 5 or 10 years away instead of it's certainly not next week. We've got a lot of stuff to do. But I see that as something that we have to do for the future. I just don't know how long it will be before we get there. So where we are, there's a couple of websites. There's the rel.org. We keep putting up pre-built applications for Windows, Macintosh, and once in a great while we refresh the Linux build. But for every 1,000 downloads of the PC, there's 200 of Mac and 1 of Linux. So that's approximately the demand ratio. There seem to be a good number of people who, despite this being in Python 3, we have a Python 2.7 version. Python 2.7 is what the Google App Engine requires, and there are people with very, fussy and rigid Python environments that need 2.7, and we do support that. Python is just about to release something new called 3.3. The thing that will have is completely new string support. I expect to advance to that, but again, those are low-level details. So you can get started. There is I think I have a web page open on it. There is a web page called rel.atlassian.net. This is sort of the formal project management system for REL. You can see if you have a bug report, and you'll see we got some this week. If you give it to me on a stick, I'll probably forget about it. put it here, people will track it. You know, it has a priority. People can fight over what the priority is and the timing, and you know, we can get out of the cowboy type of project management. These things, the ones you see are public. There's some that some people work on that they make logins and keep them private to their project because they don't want their stuff shared, etc., etc. There's also a automatic documentation system. The equivalent of JavaDocs in Python generates documentation from the code, and it's called readthedocs.org, but they have a really cute four-letter way of getting at it. A rel dot. You've heard the acronym RTFM. So this is a rel.rtfd.org. Can't forget that. It's a little bit too cynical, and that will take you down to. It's being downloaded now, I guess. That will take you down to all of these inline comments being spliced into documentation. We're only at the beginning of that. That will evolve in time. But there is documentation on the website too. This is just the inline stuff that you get by sifting through the code, like in JavaDocs. Some people want documentation, I know. Kind of backwards. When I look at a Java program, you look at the JavaDocs, and it's better than looking at source code. So I'd rather turn this into questions from anyone here, or move on to the next presentation, because we're supposed to gather in the other room soon. All right, now, since I'm also organizing, our next presentation is Javi and Nacho.
Thank you very much. So, as a question of logistics, please remember the evaluation form is in the first page. The other topic is at the end of the presentations here. Please go everybody to the theater for the international initiatives, integrated reporting, corporate social responsibility, and so on. There are some demos here, and they are waiting for you in the, I think so, Eric Cohen, in the main stage to prepare the demos and so on. Check with Eric. And well, the idea of this presentation for now is we will, Javi and me will present a tool, basically it's Excel programming, in order to help the IT experts to understand how to generate XBRL instance documents. Because the problem to the students how to create XBRL, and Ignacio, si te sientas ahí nos bloqueas el proyecto. Ignacio, pon eso para allá. Gracias. Okay. So, let me show an example. This is the XBRL International Statements of Financial Position. You go to XBRL International website, you may find the financial position on paper and also in a XBRL instance document. So I am using this XBRL instance document to explain how an XBRL instance document is prepared. The first point, as you can see, is the cash, the base item. The base item is cash, and you need to provide an IT container for the cash. And basically, this is the lines in which the information is actually transmitted in a XBRL instance document. First is what is the namespace, what is the global container. The global container is the US GAAP taxonomy. The US GAAP taxonomy have a number of base items, more or less 15,000, and you must choose one of that as container of the figures. This is the first problem, the tagging, because for an accountant maybe easy to understand that cash and equivalence in paper is the same than cash in the US GAAP taxonomy. For an IT expert, this is extremely different because cash are 4 letters and cash and equivalence are 20 letters. So are different tags. This is a problem for IT experts because are absolutely unable to make this tagging. So this is a question for the USA for the certified public accountants. In addition to that, you put the figures. Yeah? You have 2 figures in the paper and 2 figures here. So, other problem, the same base item is reported twice for 2 years. So you need something to add another information to the base item, some kind of hard-coded dimension. For instance, the periods. Also, you say here what is the currency, because this is dollars. It's clear in the paper that they are dollars. But maybe euros or yens and so on. So there are another hard-coded dimension that is the unit. In this case, it's a monetary unit according to the ISO standard, US dollars. And you have a context because you also need to define that this is XBRL International, and you can see that this is in the same file. You may put XBRL International or different entities. In the context ID, you can see the unit is here, dollar. In the context ID, you must to say what is the reporting entity, in this case XBRL International, and what is the period of time, 2011, 2012. So as you can see, as a minimum, the minimum of a XBRL instance document is 3 dimensions. The maximum, who knows, but at least the minimum are 3 hard-coded dimensions. So, the point, and this is basically an XBRL instance document. The rest is stuff. The taxonomies are used to validate that this XBRL instance document is well-formed, is coherent, and so on. But you may ignore in this academic exercise the taxonomy. Only go to the XBRL instance. So the next point is to describe a program for training, for teaching, how to generate an XBRL instance document from a very simple input. For instance, something that every programmer understands, that is code value. For instance, CAS 2010 and the value, CAS 2011 and the value. Because in my opinion, the average programmer only understands flat files. XML files, relational dimensions, and so on is too complex for a standard program. So the idea is to prepare a simple demo how to generate from a flat file a XBRL instance document. To do that, we make a pseudo UML description. What is an XBRL instance document? You put a header, something in the middle, something in the tail, and a context. The context have scenarios, segments, tuples, and facts. So this is the structure. What is an scenario? It's something, in the context you may say what is the entity, what is the period, and a scenario and segments. A scenario and segment are basically containers for dimensions, and you can see here how to generate that. And also how a fact, the line of the code of the fact is generated, and the UML description of the topics. All of this basically has been copy and paste of the work of Hugh Wallis and others related to the specification of XBRL. You go to the specification, and this is an example took by the specification. Now, Javi, could you go to the program? The idea is to do that with a very short program in Visual Basic in order that everybody understands how to generate that. Yeah, okay. So, in order you may download that from Openfiling website. The first point is the programming, the Visual Basic. You can see this program that is 500 lines of code, so it's not too long. And basically, this is the code that is the translation in Visual Basic of the UML models, how to generate each part. Okay? How this is running? We prepare data that all the programmers understood. Cell A1, cell A2, and the figures in this cell. Okay? Obviously, in order that we make a translation that is specific for this program, is a preprocessor, how to translate each cell of that in something that may be generated an XBRL instance document. To do that, the idea is to translate this flat file in an XBRL instance document. The first point is translate the flat file, this one. Okay. We put all the basic information needed for generate the XBRL instance document: the base item, the decimal, the unit rate, the facts, and the dimensions. And the next point is, with this information, generate an XBRL instance document and we can see what has been generated with RL, for instance, or a viewer, and also maybe in the source code that is quite easy, or simply so the source code maybe, in order not to take much time. Okay, and basically this is the result generated with this proof of concept. And this is a valid XBRL instance document using the FinRep taxonomy. And you can see the dimensions, the members, and all of this information. So what is the final idea here? Is to help the students of to train IT experts to generate XBRL instance documents, since the most basic, and be able maybe to prepare their own converters or understand how the converters runs and demo. And this is exactly this file that is obviously quite complex. It's a highly dimensional FinRep instance document with rendering link base and so on, generated with less than 500 lines of code in a didactic way. Questions? Something? So the last but not the least presentation is from Ignacio Santos and Elena Castro from the Carlos III University. The point here is to explain how to link the question here is how to link XBRL information with relational databases and how to transform automatically with some scripts the information inside XBRL taxonomy and the XBRL documents into Latin alternatives. When remember when Ignacio finished, please everybody go to the main stage, to the theater, for the demonstrations in the international initiatives with Fisher, Cohen, and all the colleagues, also for the protocol for the course session. You are welcome. Remember the evaluation form, and remember if you are interested, the site Toledo this afternoon and tomorrow mañana. Simply go to the right station according to the instructions, and you can see that here, and I will give you.
Only 50 minutes. 50 minutes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Elena Castro and I, we present a proof of concept in the validation of a XBRL document instance in a database, in relational database. The summary is introduction, the architecture, automation process, and conclusion and feature work. In the past, Elena Castro and I, we proposed the necessary structure and the semantic rules of the XBRL data model, but in this case, in the multidimensional data model. We published two conference, two papers in WEBIST 2011, Netherlands in May, and in IADIS 2011 in Shanghai, in China, last December. Now we present the validation rules, but in the multidimension model, and the formalization of the rules, including mathematical definition. But I'm sorry, mathematical here no. Sorry, because I think it's a little boring for this room, maybe. Yeah? But we provide a second way to validate SBR reports through in a relational database. But our aim is the automate the mapping between SBR formulas between SML and a relational database. This research, we think, Elena Castro and I, that will improve the interoperability among application, government, Monet, in other track. Yesterday Monet, I don't know, I didn't remember. We presented a proof of concept of mapping or the XBRL report versus database relational in the first Open Filing General Assembly in September 5th, 2011, hosted Banca d'Italia, Rome. But in this occasion, we work with FinRep, with the draft FinRep 2011. But 2 months ago, don't exist these formulas for FinRep 2011. Then I work with FinRep 2008 that Bank of Spain published in the web and the internet. But I center with the report 6610. The architecture. When we have the structure of data and metadata in a relational database. In my case, I choose Microsoft SQL Server 2011 because in my as employed in Bank of Spain, I dedicate to administrate this database. Therefore, it's easier. But this example is very easy to transform Oracle, DB2, or Sybase, for example. What is the idea? The idea is to extract the formulas through an LLM. After we generate the validation rules in a relational database. And at the end, execute the validation rules. The architecture, the model. The quality of the model. We have 5 steps. The first step is create the structure in the database from the standards. XBRL 2.1 and dimension 1.0. After, we create the metadata, the dimension, the attribute of dimensions. I remember attribute of dimension in multidimensional data model is the same that members in the XBRL data model. And facts, the facts is equivalent to the the primary items is equivalent to the concept basic concepts. Okay. The third step is to load the facts from the XBRL document instance, but in the same way is to export this data, the facts, to a document instance. But in parallel, we come to create the rules, to do a constructor of rules from the standard and the formula link base of this taxonomy. Then I load these rules. In this case, because I am with a database. The five step is the end user. So I can't work with the database for that you know. With a spreadsheet, Excel, another database, report, etc. And so on. Is the model that we presented in Rome. The dimension, attribute of dimension, the members, the primary item, and so on. Okay. The demo. One moment, please. Sorry. Oh, aquí está. Okay. Here's the tables. For example, the attributes of the dimension, the members, etc. The facts for one document instance. Okay, very beautiful. No, not beautiful. No, I'm sorry. It's a little joke. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. The automation process from formula metadata, the link by the formula link base, through RL, with an API from RL, the Guru RL, you know. We create a plain test file with the assertion. With a process of mapping, we create a stored procedure, really a set of stored procedures. But in the future, stored procedure, but why not in COBOL, in Visual Basic, or other language, and put .NET in Java? Okay. I'm sorry. We have here the process of the API of XBRL of RL. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Here is the process. It's a command. No, don't worry. I'm sorry. I generate here. 2 minutes, maybe, or one minute, I don't know. Then we obtain, one moment please, I'm sorry. This, okay. Your set of assertions, okay? Then in this proof of concept, I choose as a selection. Then is the future architecture. The idea is the database, the relation database, the report, the dictionary when the store procedures, or in application server, the program with the validation, and the report is this. Our proof is the set of store procedures, the documents, and from here we validate. With another process, I execute a Visual Basic script, this IC language. Okay. And we create the procedures. One moment, please. Sorry. Okay. Okay. No. It's a set of procedures in automatic way. One moment. Sorry. Okay. If you can see, refresh. No procedures. Okay. Now executes. Okay. The set of assertions. Okay. Then, in the same way, I generate the program to validate. It's very clear that depending on platform or your company, this validation, the screen can be different. Sorry. In test format, is the set of assertion is the rule are is correct or incorrect. Okay. Conclusion of future work. We are map the validation rules. Really, from RL, we obtain the set of the set of assertions, and our work, Elena and I, we obtain the different templates. Because each assertion has to belong to a template, a group of template. Sorry. Okay. Group of template. And that for now we have 5 type of template. Why template? Because depending of the number of filters. Depending of the basic concept, depending on your, I have to do certain queries to database, depending on the number, or there are preconditions. Another question. Okay. Our idea is to do a general process for the majority of the taxonomies. And in the future, validation in other language. What language? Now in database. Tomorrow maybe in Java. Why not? But the fundamental question is the automation, is our aim. Question, I'm sorry, those ensures. You type, sorry, a little. Okay? Thank you very much to everybody. Okay, thank you.